Welcome to Asheville, North Carolina in the early 1900s. Today, we're stepping back in time with the 1913 Sanborn Fire Insurance Map. We'll explore how Asheville looked during this time in history, highlighting the Biltmore Estate, Biltmore Village, and other landmarks that shaped the city at the dawn of the 20th century. In 1913, Asheville was a booming mountain resort town. Known for its clean mountain air, rural location, and beautiful scenery, it became a great location for several sanitariums. So here are some images of some sanitariums located in Asheville, North Carolina during this time period. I loved this one. It was a super nice place to convalesce. I love the front porch and then that stairway that goes down. Here's another one. This one looks like it's at least 3 stories. This one almost looks like a Victorian house, also with the front porch, which was a trademark feature of sanitariums since people would get fresh air to help with their healing. This one was giant, and it's got 3 levels of porches for outdoor healing and recovery. In the modern day, though, not many people are familiar with sanitariums and often confuse them with places where patients with mental illnesses are treated. Sanitariums were established in the 19th century as healthcare facilities that specialized in treatment and care for chronic and long-term illnesses. Generally, the sanitariums were used to treat tuberculosis or TB, but eventually evolved to encompass other conditions as well. The sanitariums were located in rural areas in order to prevent spread of TB, which was a highly contagious illness. The sanitariums were preferred by the wealthy since they were typically more comfortable than hospitals and provided amenities for patients as well as social interaction and support among patients. The Kellogg's brothers of the Kellogg's Cereal Company had their own sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan, with one of their patients being C.W. Post, the founder of Post Cereal. C.W. founded a town in West Texas also by the name Post. I've included the link to that video in the description below. Next, the focus shifts to the Biltmore Estate, which had only been standing for about 2 decades by 1913. The estate was built between 1889 and 1895 for the American millionaire George Vanderbilt II. Vanderbilt was born in New York City in 1892. He was the son of railroad tycoon William Henry Vanderbilt and grandson of Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt. Commodore Vanderbilt established the family's fortune in transportation, becoming a millionaire in the 1840s through his ferry and steamship line monopolies in New York and eventually expanding into railroads. The Commodore created a financial empire that made the Vanderbilts one of the wealthiest families in the world. George Washington Vanderbilt II was naturally a private person and spent much of his childhood and early adulthood visiting museums, libraries, and other historic sites around the world. Through his travels, he became a collector of artistic and historical artifacts that would eventually be put on display in his home, the Biltmore Estate. In 1888, Vanderbilt first visited Asheville, North Carolina. He fell in love with the area and the Blue Ridge Mountains and started purchasing land through an associate, Charles McNamee. This was during the Gilded Age, which must have inspired his architect's design of the home. Vanderbilt chose Richard Morris Hunt as his architect and Frederick Law Olmsted to design the grounds. Olmsted was famous for designing Central Park, which was completed in 1876. George Vanderbilt worked with both men before to build the Vanderbilt Mausoleum in Staten Island, another monument to the Gilded Age. Although the original estate stretched across 125,000 acres across 4 counties, by 1913, much of it had already been sold to the federal government to become Pisgah National Forest. So here's a couple of images of the Biltmore Estate being constructed. This was a massive, massive undertaking. Here it is completed. It's a gorgeous photo. Once it was completed, it contained 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, and 65 fireplaces. Vanderbilt finally opened the doors to his grand country estate in 1895 on Christmas Eve. The estate is still run by members of the Vanderbilt family and is open year-round for tours. Since the estate was so far outside of town, it was not included on the Sanborn map, since these maps focused on the urban areas and cities and towns with more dense populations and therefore more of a fire risk to an insurer. The Biltmore Estate was a single structure, massive country home built of fire-resistant stone and posed a very different fire risk than what the Sanborn maps were focused on. The home was built with indoor plumbing, a fire alarm system, and a telephone system, which were hallmark technologies of the Gilded Age. With these systems in place, the home posed a very low fire risk as far as the Sanborn Map Company was concerned. Furthermore, if the estate had a fire, an insurance company would never be able to cover that loss. Just outside the estate, Biltmore Village appeared on the 1913 Sanborn map as its own thriving community. Looking at the map, Biltmore Village appears almost like a town within a town. Biltmore Village did not show up on the index map for the Asheville 1913 Sanborn map. So I've got that pulled up here, and this is the main part that this map shows. However, it does show up on page 41 of the Sanborn map. This is Biltmore Village, and it has a note up here that says Biltmore is located 2¼ miles south of Asheville, and that all buildings inside Biltmore town limits are owned by the George Vanderbilt Estate. Originally called Best Village, or simply Best, it was built as a planned community to house estate workers. It was designed as a model village featuring tree-lined streets, Tudor-style cottages, shops, and a church. The Cathedral of All Souls stood in the center of Biltmore Village, right here, and it was consecrated in 1896. By 1913, Biltmore Village had a train depot, several factories, and a 15-man volunteer fire department. Zoom in right here, and it talks about that. Fire department, volunteer, 15 men. And then the train depot was right down here. For my research for this video, I referenced 2 books, these Images of America book. I've got this one that is around Biltmore Village, and then this one that is Biltmore Estate. They had some amazing photos, and right here we've got the Biltmore Passenger Station 1900, so that was shown over here on this map. Right here we have the passenger depot, and then later they had the freight depot. This next one also includes the freight station. What I thought was so cool is that when you get off of the train station in Biltmore Village, you look straight down this plaza, down Short Street, and there's the All Souls Church, which this is a view of that, which I think is amazing. It's really awesome. Then here's the Sunday school or parish hall under construction, and it even shows up here on the map. I love seeing stuff like that. So this post office building is also shown on the map, and they said it was just right off of the passenger depot over here off of the train tracks. So this right here, PO. Another thing I found really interesting with this is they had these cottages. The rent charged for the cottage was dependent on its location. So the cottages that were located over here by the train tracks, so these right here, they had a lower rent than some of the cottages further away from the train tracks. This is the building that the people who run the Biltmore Estate worked out of. This is a photo from when it was first built, and then you come over here, and this is the Google Street View of it now. I think it's awesome that it's still standing. Beyond the estate and village, other significant landmarks also stand out in Asheville's 1913 landscape. That year marked the grand opening of the Grove Park Inn, built by E.W. Grove. It was currently being built in 1913, as we see on this map that's dated from March 28, 1913. When we go over here and look at the Sanborn map, it's right here. It says Grove Park Hotel being built. So it was not quite finished by the time they drew this map. The Stone Hotel quickly became a luxury destination and attracted famous guests with its sweeping mountain views. The Sanborn map not only shows us Asheville's buildings, it reveals its identity as a crossroads of health and hospitality and progress in the early 20th century. From the magnificence of the Biltmore to the careful design of Biltmore Village and the bustling streets of downtown Asheville, the 1913 Sanborn map gives us a window into a city on the rise. If you enjoyed this journey into Asheville's past, subscribe for more historic deep dives and stories hidden in the maps that shaped our communities. I also have a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for. It goes into some more of the details that I wasn't able to cover in my videos. It's got a list of the books that I recommend for each of these cities. I also have a store where you can buy the canvas wraps or framed prints of these maps, or if you know of any city that you would like a map of, I do custom orders as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this trip. Until next time, bye.